Okay, welcome everyone to the Protein Edge webinar. I'm Amber. This is my husband, Jared. We have been health coaches for almost 16 years. We're coming up on our 16-year health anniversary. Can you believe it?
It's been longer than that for the process, right?
Yeah, I mean, health is a whole life thing most of the time, right?
Yep, for
Whether it's
sure.
the good health or the bad health.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I started out in my life really, really skinny. And
Same.
I even graduated from high school almost 6'2", just under 6'2", and I didn't even weigh 160 pounds. And I was going to play college basketball, and they're like, "You won't even step on the floor unless you're 175." And this was 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago. It's 2025. Holy cow, 33 years ago.
Yeah.
And the way to gain weight was they were just like, go eat all the junk food, like go to the burger joints, go to the pizza joints and stuff. They didn't care about performance or anything like that. All they cared about was our playing weight.
I feel like it's
And
different now. People are starting to catch
oh
on a
yeah,
little bit
yeah.
more.
Colleges now have terrific nutrition people in their athletic departments, in their dance departments,
Yeah.
everything. Um, so I didn't have the upbringing of, even though I was skinny, I didn't really have healthy habits.
Mm.
So after we got married and I got pregnant 3 times with her, and I think I gained about as much weight as she did, and I just didn't have any babies. And and it was my bad habits catching up with me.
hmm
And I was still exercising a lot. I've always loved exercise, and we'll talk a little bit about exercise on this webinar. But we want to talk really about the whole picture when it comes to longevity, about our muscles, everything.
Yeah. And I didn't ever think that I looked bad. Like honestly, I am one of those people. I'm just like, I just look so great at any weight, and I was overweight. And it wasn't until I found out my health was going downhill in my mid 20s that my cholesterol was super high that kicked me into gear. So I'm glad that I found that out because I had a whole lot more energy and zest for life after I became a little healthier.
Yeah, that's actually true. Most people will not change for motivation, external motivation. Their intrinsic motivation is the only motivation that is lasting. So when it's something that affects you, like cholesterol numbers, and that's really a shock, like a traumatic
It was probably because
experience.
I was so young.
Yeah,
It probably wouldn't have shocked me as much in my 40s or
right, right. So, um, 16 years ago, we got connected with Optavia, and we actually were very skeptical, not because of the company, but because it was being offered to us by Amber's mom, and it's like you can't have mom or mother-in-law be right,
tell you what to
tell you
do.
what to do. So we were a little bit resistant, and we did a lot of homework. Actually read the entire Habits of Health before we joined. We looked into all of their accolades dating back to 1980. We read their research, all these things, and just in the last decade, um, uh, Optavia has caught the eye of a lot of big companies like Fortune, Forbes, um, as most trustworthy companies. They got that. They were awarded that 4 years in a row.
Yeah, even
Um,
our partnerships like with LifeMD
yeah,
Telehealth. So it's very reputable company,
yeah.
and we love that. The other thing we loved is that it was a complete system. I lost my weight before we found Optavia, and that was very important to me that people, not people, me, that I wasn't doing a diet, that I was really making a lifestyle change and that meant that I was learning about health, that I was changing the way that I eat long term. And I didn't even know that there was coaches and a community and this curriculum that was really based in research. So when we found that and really saw what it was, it really made sense because all of these components together really equal success for our clients.
Yeah, everybody, every single person on this planet is on a diet.
Yep.
I can tell what kind of diet you are by looking at your grocery receipt,
Credit
your
card
credit
bill.
card bill and stuff, see that the restaurants that you dine at and stuff. So everybody's on a diet. And when Amber said we didn't want to be on a diet, we didn't want to be on that four-letter word,
Yeah,
right?
short
Where
term,
short term,
fad.
right?
Yeah.
We were very committed to, hey, this is where we want to go, and we need to make some adjustments. We need to put in some new uh, numbers in the GPS, so to speak,
Yeah.
and we're going to take a different path. And so ask yourself, what does my life look like? Does it look like these pictures on the left or the picture on the right?
Well, right now it's not warm enough to be dressed like that,
Right?
but I
But
did play pickleball
yeah,
today.
you don't always have to be doing the activity outside, but Dr. Anderson in The Habits of Health, he tells kind of the backstory of our ancestral evolution, right?
Mhm.
It's estimated that 10,000 years ago that our ancestors were moving, they were active 3,000 minutes a week. There's like 4,300 minutes in a week. They were moving, they were active 70% of the time.
Probably only not active while sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally sleep was and restorative, like they had to relax and recover, right? But they were also really, really strong because of how much they moved. Today, in today's world, um, someone who moves and is active 300 minutes per week is considered extremely active.
It's like a tenth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. So the average American, ages 15 and above, are watching over 3 hours of television and movies per day.
Wow.
That's it's over 22 hours per week.
Yeah, it's no wonder that we're seeing muscle mass like reducing in our society. And, they've done studies and change in muscle mass and strength. It starts as early as 30 years old, which I mean, you see it.
Well, these are the studies, but you can look at kids, you can look at teenagers who don't have the strength to do certain things that perhaps you did when you were young because they're sitting in front of the TV, sitting in front of devices or video games so much. So it is critical that we refocus our lives on building muscle and maintaining muscle across the decades of our life.
Right. No, it's so true because our country, they talk about the obesity numbers, but I think what doesn't get talked about quite as much, I think it's starting to go in that
Yeah.
direction. A lot of people are starting to talk about muscle more, but we are under muscled. We have sarcopenia, which is just under muscle,
Yeah. Well,
basically.
sarcopenia is actually comes from a Greek word and it literally means poverty of flesh.
Wow.
That sounds
It sounds
terrible.
like a horror movie.
Yeah, because the poverty of flesh, look at this diagram here. Normal muscle fibers versus atrophied muscle fibers. They're finding sarcopenia in 20-year-olds,
Mm.
30-year-olds, and over 50% of the mitochondria,
Powerhouse of the
powerhouse
cell.
of the cell,
I
right?
remember that from junior high.
Right? Over 50% of the mitochondria in our body is found in our skeletal muscle.
Mm.
If we don't have healthy skeletal muscle, then the mitochondria is drying up and we don't have enough. Mitochondria is where ATP, where energy is created.
How many of you put a one in the chat if you've ever said in the last year that you wanted more energy? I can definitely, yes, I hear that every single day. In fact, people say I want more energy.
And the funny thing is like, um, how many of you, when you think I want more energy, The very next thought is, I need to go exercise. I need to go lift some weights and build my muscle. No, it's obvious. It's sometimes the opposite. Like, oh, I'm so tired. I must need to rest more.
Right. Yeah, and you get into that cycle, where you have the low energy, so you don't exercise as much, which creates less energy,
Yeah.
and it's just a spiral, right?
Yeah. So look at this. So MDDs on the list on the left are what are called mitochondrial dysfunction diseases. Because we don't have enough healthy mitochondria in our body, this is just a sampling of the diseases. Is there anything that's not on there?
That's a lot of circles.
That's a lot of circles,
Those
right?
circles overwhelm me.
Diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's, uh, forms of cancer, obesity, neurological disorders, all these things, mitochondrial dysfunction. The One of the greatest findings in the decades of science is that our muscle is actually an endocrine system. And our when our muscles contract, they release these what they call hope molecules. This is what the scientists refer to them.
They called
They,
them hope
they call
molecules?
them hope
Okay, I want to
molecules.
hear about
They're
this.
called myokines or myokines, and they're one of the only uh, um, cells or anything that will break the blood-brain barrier. So when we exercise, these hope molecules are released through our whole body, and it's people often just say, "Oh, I gotta go get the endorphins." Well, your
Mhm.
body, it's not just endorphins. These hope molecules are being released to fight things like depression,
Mhm.
right? So wherever we are at right now, everything can always be different,
Better or worse?
right? So it's in and but I'll go back to the word hope. Hope is a terrible strategy.
Like you just hope that it gets better, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't just hope. You have to actually put a plan of action in. And I would argue um, or suggest very strongly that any change of plan or intent, that you find somebody that you can share accountability with,
Like enough to be a coach?
like an Optavia
Or even
coach,
a friend,
a friend, right?
Okay, Jared was telling me about this study, so I'm excited for him to tell you about it because this is so interesting.
So there's two studies that have totally caught my attention in the last few months. One, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, she's a biochemist and researcher. She told about this that the effects of vigorous exercise on the heart of people over 50. So they took a large group, several hundred people in their 50s.
You're in your 50s.
I am in my 50.
That's true.
I just turned 50. These people, they were completely sedentary. Okay. They had no disease. They were non-diseased people. They had no high blood pressure. They had no high cholesterol numbers.
They were doing pretty good.
They were healthy. They were healthy fat or healthy, unhealthy skinny, right? They
Okay.
just were non-diseased. Okay. That was the only criteria. Then over the first 6 months of this 2-year study, they built them up to where they could engage in vigorous exercise. This is phase 2 or 3 heart rate for 45 minutes minimum up to an hour. And they built them up to 4 to 5 days a week. Then for the next 18 months, they sustained this 4 to 5 times a week of exercise. And after 2 years, they went in and took 8 EKGs and all of the tests, right? And on average, across the entire group, they had an effective reduced heart age of nearly 20 years.
What was the word? Was this the one that talked about how much muscle they built?
No, that's the next one.
Oh, dang.
Oh,
Okay.
dang. Amber's more excited about this one.
I was more excited about
Okay.
the next one, but you finish this one first.
So these people in 2 years, they reduced their effective heart age by nearly 20 years.
That's actually really big.
Really big.
Yeah. Like a 30-year-old versus a 50s
Yeah. And
person.
these were people who didn't show any signs or symptoms of disease yet,
Mm.
right? So these weren't what we would call unhealthy people, right? The second study, go back. You see the picture of the leg extension machine. Okay. So they took over 250 people. The first group was about 140 people, and it was people, men and women in their 20s. Then there was an older group ranging from 74 to 85 years old. And they took an original assessment, and the test was a 3 rep max on a leg extension machine. This was all supervised, monitored. Okay. Then they had trainers work with both groups, the 20s and the 70s and 80s, on a 6 week program to see what percentage of increased strength they could sustain during a 6 week period. The group of individuals in their 20s, they increased their strength over 6 weeks on a 3 rep leg extension max by 82%.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
They're almost doubling what they could lift for 3 reps. The group in their 70s and 80s, they increased their strength by 78%. Only 4% lower.
Yeah, what that told me, and I liked this study, is that a lot of times we just think that we have to give up when we're older. Like, oh, my body just can't, have more muscle, or I can't build muscle anymore. And I think that that's debunked.
It's totally debunked. And honest, if we're really, really honest with ourselves, we have to say, no, I just quit.
Mm,
I just quit trying as hard. Oh, I'm tired. I don't have the energy to go do that. But those are the very things that will create the energy that we're all talking about wanting.
yeah, for sure. And a lot of times, different aches and pains, we hear that all the time too. Like, I don't want to have my aches and pains anymore. And even something like back pain, the one of the biggest causes is just carrying extra weight or sitting excessively, poor posture. So a lot of times, it's something that we can control ultimately as we build our muscle and lower that body fat percentage.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I used to have back problems. My back was just always sore, and I just thought that, oh, I'm getting old.
Hmm.
And then I actually started to work on my core and posterior chain muscles and all these things. And then I was like, wow, my back doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah. That's huge. And there's a lot of exercise benefits. I think probably people on here know a lot of these, but it's a good reminder that exercising strengthens our bones and muscles, improves our ability to perform. I know I could jump higher, play volleyball longer.
So, how much, put a one in the chat if you've ever yourself or heard someone else say, oh, I'm big boned.
I mean, I've definitely heard people say
Okay,
that.
so when we gain excessive weight and we are over fat, our bones actually shrink. So we cannot use that that we are big boned when we're just overweight.
You mean like the bone density shrinks?
Bone density shrinks.
Mm,
Our bones actually weigh less when we're over fat. When we start lifting heavy things, our bones actually get stronger.
mm,
So, I 2 months ago, our son came home from a service mission and stuff, and he lifts really heavy. So I made a goal that I was going to get really strong with him. So I've started to lift a lot heavier weights than I have over the last several years. And I've taken like basically like an in-body scan and stuff. And in the last 2 months, my bone density has increased almost a pound
mm.
from 7.2 pounds to 8 pounds. So if someone says, "Oh, I've got big bones," I'll give you the extra pound or two of having big bones. But bones just don't weigh that much.
I think you're right. I see those skeleton like things at the doctors, and
right?
they're kind of small.
So, one of the warnings, though, that we give of exercise is when you exert energy, it might give you some cravings,
Mm,
right? You might have some rumblings in your tummy,
oh
right?
yeah.
But just because um, they're medically, they call it hormesis. Hormesis is basically the body saying, I'm going to fight against resistance. I'm going to get stronger. Two things that many medical professionals say are essential on a daily basis is that every single day that you experience hunger,
I'm always hungry.
it's good to be hungry. We shouldn't always be full. If we're always full, then our body isn't burning fat.
Mm.
The other one is we should get out of breath every single day. Run to the corner and back, or start by walking to the corner and back,
I
right?
run from the car into a store when it's cold outside, and my family makes fun of me, but I get out of breath. So I'm just doing what Jared told me to do. So our body is essentially made up of lean body mass or fat. So lean body mass is like your organs, your skin, your bones, connective tissue, water, and then of course muscle. So you can't necessarily affect the weight of all of these things. Like your skin's going to weigh what your
Yep.
skin's going to weigh. I mean, it is what it is, and your bones, there's a little bit that you can affect to, but mostly it's the fat where we can manipulate, and then the muscle
Yeah.
of gaining more muscle, lowering that body fat percentage.
So really tonight we're really talking mostly about body composition. Like where is our weight allocated,
Right.
right? Because how many of you like, oh, well, muscle weighs more than fat? No, it doesn't. 1 pound of fat is the same as 1 pound of muscle or bricks or feathers or whatever.
It's just fluffier
It's just
if it's the
fluffier,
fat.
right? Feathers, it would take a lot of feathers, a huge area to make up 1 pound of feathers,
Yeah, but
right?
1 pound of muscle is definitely more dense,
Yeah.
takes up less space, burns more calories. So we definitely, we prioritize that 1 pound of fat, right?
Yeah, totally. And people in the last, I don't know, decade or so have used the term lean muscle.
Mm.
All muscle is lean.
Yeah, that is funny.
Yeah. Oh, I'm focusing on lean muscle. Where I hear that from is a lot of women and some men will be like, "Well, I don't want to get too bulky."
It's so hard to get too bulky. I always tell people, don't worry. If you start lifting weights and you get too bulky, just stop lifting weights for 2 weeks. It'll all go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't worry.
You
Got an
can
easy
you
solution.
can slim down that muscle really fast,
It's so
right?
true.
So really there's two keys to body composition. One is mastering our fuel intake, both the quality of our food and the portions and the timing of those things. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. And then mastering our output. So our in the habits of health, we refer to it as EAT, exercise activity thermogenesis, and NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Running from the car to the store.
Exactly. Amber is fantastic at NEAT,
I
better than the rest of
am.
our family,
I know. I
right?
I bounce my foot. I'm doing it right now
Yeah.
too. Put a one in the chat if you're bouncing your foot or you're like
Yeah.
moving in some way that you didn't notice till just now.
Or for like 20 years, Amber does calf raises, toe raises every night while she brushes her teeth. She doesn't even know. It's just habit.
So mastering your fuel intake, a lot of times people go, "Oh, it's only calories in, calories out," but that's not actually the full story. It also is about balancing your insulin pump and managing it. So you do this by eating every 2 to 3 hours and protein carb balancing, and then also the portion control. So all of this is makes up a whole story that is fueling your body in a way that allows you to burn fat and grow your muscle. And, portion sizes, I love this picture on here 1985 versus 2005. The plates have gotten bigger and the portion looks smaller on a bigger plate. So you tend to want to fill white space, right?
Yeah, I was recently talking to a good friend of mine that I play pickleball with all the time, and he was complaining to me about over the holidays, he took his whole family to this restaurant that his family has loved for like generations. Okay. And he was complaining about how small their portion sizes were.
Hmm.
And I was asking him about like what he got for dinner and stuff, and I'm like, well, it sounds like it was actually a healthy portion. But, and I asked him, have you started to go to other restaurants where they've increased their portion sizes and you're just comparing that, or have they actually shrunk their portion sizes? And he goes, come to think of it, I think that their portion sizes have always remained the same.
Hmm.
But a lot of the other restaurants that he frequents have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like they have to get to go boxes and stuff before they even start to eat their
Well,
meal.
and what do they give you more of?
Yeah.
The cheap stuff,
Yeah.
right? The rice and beans and chips and potatoes and
Yeah.
things like that, right? So we just talked about this a
Yep.
little bit. Um, yeah, so talk a little bit more about protein.
Yeah. So, um, looking at all these, all food is made up of vitamins and minerals, right? And then those are called micronutrients. And then macronutrients are the three big ones that every label prints out, right? Protein, fats, and carbohydrates.
Hmm.
Okay. Proteins are the building blocks of muscle, and they're essential for every cellular process in our body.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can function without proteins.
Well, and also just really realizing that you need all three of
Yep.
these macronutrients in order to be healthy. Because fats is good for like your energy and cell growth, like hair, skin, nails, things like that, hormone balancing.
Yep.
Carbs are like a main source of energy, quick energy. Like, you know how you get the brain fog when you haven't like eaten enough food?
Yeah.
Yeah, central nervous system, digestion, things like that. So, because a lot of times whenever people start dieting in quotes, they're manipulating these macronutrients and or cutting some out, like only eating protein or only eating fats and protein or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And
For even an adult, for healthy brain and organ function, we need a minimum of about 70 grams of carbohydrates per day.
mhm,
So people who are cutting out all their carbohydrates,
that can't last long.
that can't last long.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. So protein is critical. Like I already said, fundamental component to every cell in the body and is essential for building and repairing tissue. A couple other things. It boosts metabolism. It takes more energy. This is called the thermic effect of food. It takes more energy for our body to digest protein than simple sugars, right? So it actually it burns more calories in the digestion process. So three basic things drive our metabolism. One is the thermic effect of food, how much energy it takes to digest our food. Number two is actually the biggest one. How much muscle do we have on our body? Because
Right.
if we have more skeletal muscle, even our base metabolic rate, just at a resting state, our body will burn more calories than someone who has very little muscle and even excessive fat. So it's not just how much you weigh, it's how much muscle is there that's consuming those calories, right? And then the third one is actually your energy output. We raise our heart rate and it requires more energy for our body to sustain.
Yeah. And the body, this last bullet talks about the body breaks down dietary protein, that means protein that you eat, into amino acids, which are then absorbed and used to build other proteins. So different protein sources, they react differently in the body because they're unique amino acid composition and then absorption rates and things like that. So people think, when you think about it, you ingest protein, it becomes amino acids and then builds your muscle, right? But here, if we break this down kind of backwards, if you start with amino acids, that's the building blocks of the protein, which then builds the muscle. So I think that it's genius that scientists and food scientists and people have studied this and are able to now allow people to ingest amino acids at their base level.
Yeah, what they call free form.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've already been broken down into essentially, and there's hundreds of amino acids in a
Hmm.
complete protein. So animal products, and there's a few vegetables that have complete protein.
Hmm.
And by complete protein, it means that it has all of the essential amino acids. But in a
Like what you need to build muscle,
right.
basically.
In a complete protein, there are 20 amino acids. Nine of them are called essential, which we need through diet, through consumption. And then the other 11 are made by our bodies. We
Hmm.
don't necessarily need more of them, but those non essential amino acids are still important because those get converted into usable energy, into glucose. So these are some examples of really high quality proteins, either plant based or animal based. But if you look at some of these numbers, I don't actually I consider when you look at the macronutrient breakdown of a food, I encourage you to always count it um, as primarily what the highest content is. Nuts are not a protein to me. Nuts are a fat. They're a healthy fat and they provide a little bit of protein. So I'll get into kind of timing in a minute. But when you've got things like poultry, seafood, red meat, whey proteins, things like that, those are really, really high in protein and much, much lower in carbohydrates and fats. So those are actually the highest quality protein sources. We need to take in approximately a little bit less or a little bit more than 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. So we subtract our fat from our body, and I weigh approximately 185 pounds. Well, Amber has an
Yeah,
example here.
let's do me. This is about me. I weigh about 140. I'm about 17% body fat. So that means that 24 pounds of my 140 is fat. So my lean body mass, which is like, all the stuff we went over, the muscle and the organs and blah, 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 is I'm left with 116. So I should be shooting for like about 116 grams of protein. And you can get your body fat percentage, like a lot of scales will do it, or a handheld machine, or you could do a fancy one that costs lots of money
Yeah,
too,
for
whatever you
sure.
like.
For sure. So, so this is an example. We encourage people to eat about 6 times a day, about every 2 to 3 hours. And the fuelings that I have highlighted in pink are times where uh, consuming protein, it's important to consume protein all throughout the day. Okay, to carb protein balance our meals. And when Amber was talking about controlling the insulin pump and blood sugar, that's how we do it. We have a little bit of protein all the time, but it's also important to have concentrated um, meals where we have higher protein because higher protein is required to initiate muscle protein synthesis. And this really has to do with the amino acid breakdown, and we'll go over what that looks like. But I've tried this with all whole foods.
Yeah,
I
it's rough.
it's rough for me to get 175 to 185 grams of protein a day. That's a lot of meat. And at 50 years old, I just don't want to eat that much meat. So I use a lot of supplementation, which tastes great and it's actually more absorbable. So
Hmm.
Optavia, we have our active line and we also have our new Ascend line that are mini meals that are higher protein.
Yeah.
So the mini meals are all between 20 and 25 grams of protein per meal, and they're about a 1-to-1 ratio between carbs and protein. So they're great for those smaller in between. um, Whey protein is one of the most digestible proteins, complete proteins. The the science behind whey protein is that it's about 2 to 3 times as effective for protein synthesis as eating a complete protein. You, if you eat, recent research shows that if you eat 30 grams of beef by itself, that you will get approximately the same protein synthesis as you would eating 70 grams of beef in a meal. Because your body is digesting all the carbs and fats and all these other things. So you actually have to eat twice as much in a meal as if you were eating just your concentrated protein source.
Yeah. So that's why we supplement, like honestly. That's the short answer. And so supplements, are they all the same? You know, there's supplements you can get them on Amazon or Walmart or whatever. Some cost more than others. It's confusing. Like if you would have sent me into a store and a GNC and be like, try to figure out which one's good, I would be like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I can't do it. So this is why I love the research that Optavia has done because it made it more simple for me to understand. And so our EAAs, for example, they do have that right ratio that we'll talk about to activate that muscle protein synthesis. And I personally love these. Like I used to deal with so much more muscle soreness and achiness and just it was hard to recover after I did exercise, so I didn't want to. I didn't want to exercise more than maybe two times a week. And now I can play pickleball, volleyball, work out, and I take my EAAs and I'm able to recover and be able to do it again the next day.
Yep. Yeah, so on the left is our EAAs, and Amber mentioned the 4:1:1 ratio. If you, so, uh,
I think we're going to go over the ratio on the other one.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
But basically, this slide is saying we list out all of the amounts
yeah,
of our essential amino acids, how many milligrams of each one. If you're looking at one, it says amino blend.
and they're not showing the amount of each ingredient
That's code for we don't want to tell you because it's not a very good ratio.
because it's under formulated. So
Yeah.
you'll see that they have 5 grams of amino blend. Ours is 10 grams of amino acids, and 5 of those grams are what are called branched chain amino acids, and we'll explain what those are.
Yeah, so you just want to be careful that you're not getting a product that's way under formulated because it's not going to actually give you the benefits. It's just flavoring your water.
Yeah,
So flavored water is yummy too,
right.
but we also want to create muscle protein synthesis.
So the science shows that in order to your body in a short period of time, this is why we recommend for people to drink our essential amino acids in under about 15 minutes,
Hmm.
because your body needs a concentrated amount of leucine. Leucine is this branch chain amino acid that sends a signal to your body that says, hey, I've got this coming into the body. Get ready to synthesize this protein. Also, so the other two supportive BCAAs, branched chain amino acids, are isoleucine and valine. Those three need to be in a 4:1:1 ratio. And the science shows that some people are like, oh, well, if this is good, then more is better, right? Well, the science shows that it actually taps out at about 1.4 times that minimum limit. So we actually maximize that and go at 3.5 grams because 3.5 is 1.4 times 2.5.
Um, Jared just put me into a coma of
She likes
numbers.
math.
Yeah, but that was a lot. And here's the other thing you need to look for is you actually need all eight essential amino acids. I know there's nine, but the actual ninth one is in everything, so we don't worry about it. But
It's tryptophan.
yeah,
It's the one that people say that makes them tired after they eat turkey.
turkey, right? So that's the basics. Look for at least 2.5 grams of leucine, all eight essential amino acids, and also 5 grams of the BCAAs leucine, valine, isoleucine in the 4:1 ratio. That is the short. You could just go into any GNC and look at every single label and then see what's what, right? Or can just buy ours.
Yeah, we actually we travel with ours all the time.
Yeah.
And a year ago, we were actually making a trip to Colorado and actually forgot ours. And we're like, "Oh man, we know what the ratios are. We've read these labels a million times." And I actually was on a research and development committee that when we developed these 6 years ago, 7 years ago. But when we traveled, we're like, we got to go find some. Like we don't want to live for 4 days without our
I get
essential amino acids.
muscle
Yeah.
like if I don't have them.
So we went to a GNC and we ended up having to buy multiple different things because they didn't all have, there wasn't a single EAA product in the whole store that had
What we
what
have.
we had in one. So we actually had to buy multiple things so that we could get all of the essential amino acids
Yeah, and the
necessary.
ones that we bought had artificials. Anyway,
Yeah.
it got us over the hump, but we definitely don't forget our essential amino acids now. Drop an EAA in the chat if you use our essential amino acids, and feel free to. I saw a few people saying how much they love them. So what we want to close with here, first, before we close, just wanted to invite you that we have an event coming up just next weekend, January 17th and 18th in Salt Lake City. If you live in the area or even drivable, we have a lot of people coming in from Idaho, from Nevada, from Colorado,
California.
yeah, California, all over. We would love to have you. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to learn more about Optavia, but really go into like the mindset um, lessons that we really teach in Optavia, and also just kind of like how to overall improve your life, like your physical strength, your mental strength, emotional,
Financial.
financial, relational. So we would love anybody to come who is available for sure.
Yeah. And life is a journey, right? And one of the things that's so important to us in Optavia is the community.
Yeah.
Um, because community, in a recent research study at Harvard, well, they're like putting together all this information now, but it actually was a 50-year study that started in 1930. And um, what they found was happiness was based on community.
Mm.
And the current director of it was speaking with Arthur Brooks, and she said, community is where people feel love.
Mm.
And so don't try to go about improving any area of your life by yourself. Reach out to the person that invited you here and just ask them like, I don't know how you can help, but let's have a conversation about what it looks like to partner up together and help with our physical health, our mental health, our financial health, whatever area it is.
Yeah, because we just talked a lot about muscle. I know we just like fire hosed you just a little bit, but I know you can handle it. But here's the thing is that it's not just about working out and growing your muscle. That's good. And we do want you to do that, honestly. It's about that overall, the trilogy of optimal health that we talk about: healthy body, healthy mind, healthy finances. All of those things together really help you to have that overall wellness and that strength that I don't know, that's what I'm going for sure. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope you learned a little bit of something. We hope that we gave you some tips that will help you to be healthier, and we will see you hopefully next week at the Momentum in the Mountains event. So have a good night, everyone. We'll see ya.